Obviously, I probably don't need to speak to you guys about tech is not my forte at all. I don't profess it to be, but selling, regardless of what the package may be, product or service, enterprise, subscription, digital, physical, 80% of sales for me is just sales. I think sometimes we make the biggest mistake in learning. Like, I look back to my learning experience. I was unfortunately kicked out of school 3 times. I didn't manage to stick school. I had a real rough 8-month period. I suffer from Asperger's syndrome, so pretty much all day my brain just goes like this, and I'm told sit still. I'm like, but I can't. I actually don't even like sitting down. Very rarely in my office or in my day will I ever sit down, let alone sit still, you know? So when I was being fed information about the Crimean War of 1854, you know, has anybody in this room ever used that war in their life for any value or purpose before?
All the time.
Yeah? Pretty much how I start most interactions. G'day mate, do you know about the Crimean War? And I think because on the day I got kicked out of school, I remember raising my hand saying, Miss Jenkins, I don't mean this in a rude way. I said, but how do I monetize this information? How do I make money off, how do I get rich off of this? She said, it's history, you idiot. I said, can I go to the future class? Stop looking at what was and start looking at what will be. She said, get out. That'll do me, I'm over this anyway. Get out of here. But I think what I realized is the reason right now I would fail a grade 11 or grade 12 exam is because I didn't know why I was being fed the information. I saw no relevance to how I was going to use it in my life moving forward. And often in teaching, we make the biggest mistake. We teach kids what they need to learn on a specific subject. It parks there in the frontal lobe waiting to find out why I need it. And then they tell you, okay, now answer these 3 questions in your textbook. And I go, that's why I needed it to do this textbook. So when I put that information down, I actually give the information away. And it was so funny that there's a research by Gallup, and they do 1,000 undergraduates. They grab 1,000 undergrads, they give them 60 days to prepare for their exam. What happens for the first 58? Nothing. Nothing. A lot of beer pong maybe, some night clubbing and all those important things. But then what happens in the last 2? Cram. So they just cram information and park it because they know the only purpose for that information is to do the exam on Friday, right? But in this circumstance, they actually get all 1,000 people to do the same exam 24 hours later. But only 12% of people get the same or a better result. And what it shows us is that unless we have a deeply rooted why, we'll very rarely find our what and our how. If I gave you an example of that, I'm stood on my feet today and I'm a little bit light on my feet. I've actually got a full rupture of my ACL, so I've completely snapped my ACL. I have a grade 2 tear of my PCL, I've got a horizontal tear across my lateral meniscus, and I've got a subcortical fracture of my kneecap at the moment, so I really should probably be on some crutches. But I went to the surgeon. I've had 2 knee reconstructions previously. I went to the surgeon, I've had the full consult, he's asked me 1,000,001 questions. But what he found out very quickly was my why. My why is that I want to be back on the football pitch by the first week of February. Now that's very ambitious, but it's possible as long as I take the right steps to do it, right? So he gives me his pitch. He says, what we're going to do, we're going to take some hamstring, we're going to take some cartilage from your hamstring, we're going to bond it across your lateral meniscus to strengthen your posterior cruciate ligament to give you more general flexibility in the knee. And at the time, I didn't have a clue what most of those words meant. But he finished it by telling me, but most importantly, Jack, there's a really good probability I can have you on the pitch by February. How does that sound? I said, that sounds perfect. He said, great, so is that something that you'd like to book in? I said, yeah. I agreed to book a surgery that I didn't even understand. Why did I do that? Trust, because he's the authority, he's the expert. He did subtly introduce the fact he'd done 7,000 knee reconstructions before and named some celebrity NRL players and AFL players I was familiar with to give it validity, for sure. One other reason?
Met your goal.
He met my goal. He found my why. And he delivered me inside that why. So I'm stood there at the counter, ready to book, and I've got this sinking feeling. I forgot to ask one really important question. How much is this going to be? When when you're looking at your presentations from a human intelligence perspective, okay, when you're looking to win relationships, several of you in here said, my style is relationship building. It's about acquisition of partners, right? So I would say to you, focus on the two easiest human emotions that individuals can connect themselves to. Those two are humility and humor. You don't have to like somebody to find them funny. Anybody ever listened to Steady Eddie before? Do you know what I'm talking about? Who Steady Eddie is? Some of you all looked at me with a bit of a blank face there. I thought the Aussie audience would have laughed that up. I was on a cruise last week and he was the comedian. Wow, he does not care who he offends, right? He's very, very, very blunt. Anybody listen to Jim Jeffries before as another example of that? He doesn't care if he offends you. As a matter of fact, I believe it's his intent, right? But whilst I don't like it, I find it very, very humorous. It tickles you, right? So if you want to win somebody over, making them laugh, making them smile, I'm not asking you to rip off your worst dad joke, but if you can genuinely make somebody see humor in the communication you're having, in the interaction between the two of you, immediately there's a deeper rooted emotional and social connection. The second is humility. You will have already heard me today use the words like humbled, blessed, honored, grateful. Yeah? By inserting this type of language as soon in the piece as you can, you display high levels of humility, which is very easy to emotionally connect with. Does that make sense? Yeah? Because we're emotional little beings. You know that, don't you? Some of you are a bit stonewall, but most of us are emotional little beings. And we all yearn to be cared for and loved and have attention. So when you are selling, remember, emotion beats logic every time. The one thing I would say to you is the biggest mistake of salespeople in 2018 is they keep selling their favorite parts of their product. You can't just sell the bits you like about your product because you are not everybody, right? So all I would say is that the second stage in here is called your discovery. The very final, or one of the final discovery questions I would ask my client is, if you had a magic wand in your hand today, what would perfect look like to you? Yeah, when I find out what perfect looks like to them, I learned that with the Japanese when I went over and spent some time with Toyota. And when you find out what perfect looks like to the end user, your only responsibility is to present that. You get where I'm coming from? So the third stage in here is your presentation. But so often you're presenting either all of your product when it doesn't all apply or conform to me, or you're selling me what you believe to be the most impressive parts of it. But if you ask me what perfect looks like, and I tell you, and you ask me if I can move you into a position where you can access your vision of perfect, would you be in position to take advantage of it? And then I act like a mirror. My only job is to present back at you what you just asked me for. If I can. If you can't, you can't. This is Swish. Don't sell something to somebody if you don't have it. Don't falsify what it can really do. If your product's good enough, there will be enough people out there that can conform to its benefits, right? So I've been growing my team quite a lot since we were on Shark Tank, and I've consistently need to buy new hardware. I walk into the Apple store and say, can I get 3 MacBook Airs? And the guy says to me, oh yeah, come with me. This one's got 26 megawatts or gigarams or, and I'm like, oh yeah, righto. As you can probably tell, I'm not the most technical bloke in the world. All I was thinking in my head is, does it do internet, emails, and Excel? Because they are the only 3 reasons I need it. I'm busy, and he said to me, let me show you this new function on iMovie. I delete iMovie. I don't need it. It's just taking up space. You get where I'm coming from? When you are presenting, though, please evenly promote all 3 things that a customer buys. A customer doesn't just buy your product or service. They actually buy the product or service, you, so that's M for myself, and C, your company. They buy it both logically and emotionally. So what I would do if I was you coming away from today is I would build a features and benefits grid. I'd get an A3 piece of paper, I'd write feature, benefit, I'd write product, myself, company. And I'd build a grid like this. I would then look to have 5 features with 5 matching benefits for each of those 3 areas. But almost every single business I walk into only sells their product. And they, even worse than that, only sell the features of their product. That is probably the least valuable of those 6 areas. Because more and more and more, we've stopped actually buying products. Who sells the most hamburgers in the world? Who sells arguably the worst hamburger in the world?
Yes.
So the reality is, we don't go into McDonald's to buy their products from them, do we? We're buying their convenience, their locations, their price points, their consistencies, their efficiency and how quickly I can get it. We might be buying their price, but we're very rarely actually buying their product from them, right? So I would remember, people buy people, first and foremost. People buy other people. So until you learn how to effectively present yourself, and not just assuming that being a nice person is enough, but actually having feature and benefit combinations that refer to who you are and your skill set and why they stand to be returned from that, then I think you're missing the mark with your presentations, unfortunately. Once you have presented, you then have to trial close, okay? Now what I'm talking about here is low levels of commitment. I'm not asking you to ask them how they would prefer to pay, but you might use a line, something along the lines of only, minimizing word, only based on the limited amount of information I've shared with you so far today, subconsciously suggesting there's a lot more to come. Would this be something you could see? When I say see, I'm talking about the future, not the present, yourself benefiting from, not going ahead with, investing in or paying for, but only based on the limited amount of information I've shared with you so far today, is this something you could see yourself benefiting from?